What if one of the biggest misunderstandings between Poland and Western Europe isn't about politics, but about the meaning of freedom itself? Across Europe today, arguments about sovereignty, culture, religion, and identity are intensifying. And yet, something deeper is often missed. Because in Poland, freedom has never simply meant more personal choice. It has meant survival. This video explores the freedoms that matter deeply in Poland, the ones often overlooked or misunderstood by the rest of Europe. And by the end, one question will become unavoidable. Is Poland protecting something Europe has quietly forgotten? In many parts of Western Europe, freedom evolved gradually. Institutions stabilized, borders held, governments changed without the state disappearing. That was not Poland's experience. For 123 years, Poland did not exist on the map. Not weakened, not reduced, erased. So when independence returned in 1918 under leaders like Józef Piłsudski, freedom wasn't seen as an ideology. It was seen as oxygen, and that shaped something lasting. Because once a nation vanishes, freedom stops meaning self-expression. It starts meaning self-preservation. Keep that in mind, because it explains almost everything that follows. Today, discussions about supranational governance often sound technical in Brussels. Regulations, frameworks, harmonization. But in Poland, a different question tends to emerge beneath the surface. Who decides? That instinct didn't come from theory. It came from partitions, occupation, and later Soviet domination. The rise of Solidarność in the 1980s wasn't just a labor movement. It was a declaration. External control, whether military or ideological, is never neutral. That's why debates about sovereignty feel emotional rather than bureaucratic. Because historically, losing decision-making power was never temporary. It meant disappearance. And here's something worth reflecting on. When Western Europe speaks about shared governance, Poland often hears echoes of limited control. Is that paranoia or pattern recognition? Pause and consider that. In some countries, identity is viewed as flexible, something constantly reinvented. In Poland, identity has often functioned more like armor. Language survived Germanization, faith survived Russification, culture survived communist standardization. Each time, identity wasn't just tradition, it was resistance. Because when a nation cannot exist politically, it survives culturally. And that leads to a surprising perspective. Protecting identity doesn't feel restrictive. It feels liberating. Not preserving it historically led to disappearance. So when discussions in Western Europe frame national identity as something outdated, Poland often frames it as something that once prevented extinction. Two entirely different memories. In Western Europe today, religion is often treated as a private lifestyle preference. Optional, personal, increasingly irrelevant. But in Poland, religion historically did something different. It created space for independence when political space didn't exist. During communist rule, churches weren't just spiritual centers, they were one of the few places beyond state control. Figures like John Paul II didn't just inspire faith, they helped sustain national morale. So when secularization is framed elsewhere as progress, in Poland it can sometimes feel like losing a shield, because the memory remains. Faith once protected society from ideological domination. That changes how religious freedom is understood. Not simply as the freedom to believe, but the freedom to resist imposed belief. Western political culture often defines freedom individually. Freedom is autonomy. Freedom is independence from others. But Polish history repeatedly demanded something else: solidarity, shared struggle, mutual survival. Moments like the Warsaw Uprising weren't expressions of personal liberty. They were collective acts of dignity. And even in defeat, they reinforced a powerful idea. Freedom sometimes means standing together, not standing apart. So while Western Europe may emphasize "leave me alone" freedom, Polish tradition often values "stand with me" freedom. Different experiences produce different instincts, and neither is accidental. Imagine living under systems that rewrote the past. Occupiers who altered narratives, governments who censored memory. That was reality under both Nazi and Soviet control. Later, communist rule under the Polish United Workers' Party institutionalized historical distortion. So today, historical memory carries unusual weight. World War II narratives, occupation stories, resistance movements. These aren't just academic topics. They are tied to dignity. Because losing control over history once meant losing control over identity. So defending historical truth isn't seen as nationalism. It's seen as safeguarding reality itself. Here's another lasting effect of the 20th century. Communism didn't just reshape politics. It attempted to reshape society. Values, culture, language, education, everything. And because of that, many modern top-down social projects, even well-intentioned ones, can trigger deep caution. The memory isn't abstract. It says rapid ideological redesign can erase lived culture. So contemporary debates around social change often tap into historical reflexes. Not rejection of progress, but resistance to imposed transformation. There's a difference, and it matters. At its core, the difference may come down to this. Western Europe often views freedom as expansion, more autonomy, more choice, more flexibility. Polish experience often views freedom as protection, protection from domination, protection from erasure, protection from imposed identity. One seeks to broaden possibilities, the other seeks to prevent loss. Both are responses to history. At this point, a question might be forming. Are current tensions in Europe really about policy or about memory? Feel free to share thoughts in the comments, especially which freedom discussed here feels most relevant today. Perhaps the most important realization is this. Poland's relationship with freedom was forged under threat, not comfort. So its definition naturally prioritizes resilience over flexibility, security over experimentation, continuity over reinvention. And maybe that perspective isn't outdated. Maybe it's simply different. If this perspective brought new insight, consider liking the video and subscribing to The Poland for more deep dives into the ideas shaping Poland today. And if someone might see Europe differently after hearing this, sharing this video could start an important conversation, because understanding begins where assumptions end.